Ladies and gentlemen, we are very honored to have Honorable Railway Minister Mr. Prabhu with us, and I request Ben to welcome him and present him a bouquet. And now I request you to share your thoughts and guidance, sir.
So thank you and good afternoon, friends. Indian Railway has a very unique characteristic. It's a part of the government. It's also supposed to be run on commercial lines, but has to budget to be passed by the parliament, and therefore very uniquely poised. So expectations are varied. Everybody feels that we should get the best as per the constituency's expectation. But everybody finally boils down to the fact that to cater to these expectations and to cater to these growing demands from the railways, the railway network has to grow. And if it has to grow, obviously, it must invest money. And investment traditionally was coming only from one source, that's the budget, or from the internal resources which are barely enough to take care of the regular expenses. So there was hardly any surplus, which prevented railways from investing into the future. Forget the future, taking care of even today's requirement of maintenance, of track renewals, of modernization, getting new technology, even tracks, even the rolling stock, which almost more than 40,000 wagons, the coaches have not yet been fully furnished. So it are a lot of issues. So the one way to look at it was obviously to cut the cloth as what is available to us. The other way was to look at the requirement of railways and try to find money to invest into it. So obviously, if you had just gone on what is available to the railways, we would have perpetuated a problem which is plaguing the railways today. So we decided to break that vicious cycle and found some money to begin with from the Life Insurance Corporation, almost $25 billion, and we started investing hugely into the railway infrastructure. When I say hugely, it is even huge as compared to what the railways have been doing. So traditionally 45,000 crores, which has now become 350,000 crores, almost more than $60 billion in the course of last 2.5 years. But that's not something which is huge, only huge in terms of historical perspective. But if you look at the railways requirement, or even if you compare with our peers, China, for example, is investing what we are planning to invest in 5 years. China has been investing more than that every year for 30 years. And that's what we see the result. So investment is a prerequisite, and finding money for investment is something which is very imperative. So if you had gone by traditional sources, we would never have been able to reach what is our target, but would have even found it difficult to maintain the present tempo of investment. Therefore, as I said, we started with Life Insurance Corporation. Now there are new opportunities which we would like to explore with all of you. While railway has suffered from lack of investment, the potential of investment in railway is huge. I don't think there is any other organization which has asset-based, which can really be safeguarding the interests of investors hugely. In fact, the market valuation of assets will be several $trillion. Number two, this is one organization which has continuously has a source of revenue, almost $35–40 billion, and could increase substantially when we make these investments into the railways. So on one hand, the lack of investment does not mean there was no possibility of investment. The possibility of investment is huge. Only thing is that we have to structure it properly. And there have been instances wherein we have been able to succeed in doing that is by way of, say, FDI. There have been almost $6–7 billion of FDI in which GE and Alstom are going to make diesel and electric locomotives with an order of almost that much value. Secondly, station redevelopment is another opportunity in which there is a lot of interest from different stakeholders, including companies from abroad, foreign governments, and they are also interested to invest. So the opportunity of investment is always there, But structuring the investment to get that investment is something which was really lacking. And this type of roundtable will ensure and help railways to understand what are the concerns, what are the issues, and how we should structure it so that we can really move forward. There are other opportunities in the domestic investment as well. There are private freight terminals which have been created or been sanctioned in this year have been record. And in fact, in the next few days, we'll actually release the information about how many has been sanctioned during this year. Also, the possibility of end-to-end logistic support that railways can work with a lot of players. Because ultimately, logistic is what is going to grow. Transportation is part of logistic, but logistic is not transportation alone. And therefore, unless you bring in logistic and transportation together, which would really enhance the value of the business transaction that the railway does. And therefore, getting that logistic part into the railway's entire operation is so critical. Railway deals with only 10 commodities today, largely. You must increase that basket to at least 40, 50 commodities. That would mean that not only bulk commodities, but even smaller segmented, fragmented commodities can come into the railway's business pool. If that has to happen, there is a huge scope for private sector participation into aggregation of cargo, bringing it to the railways, and then taking that, as I said, the end-to-end solution that we can provide to the customer. So there are opportunities, Mahmood. Railways' ability to cater to this growing demand is there, but at the same time, partnership will be very critical. And that's what I had said in my first budget speech, that partnership should be the guiding principle of railways' future operations. So I'm sure today's meeting will help us to do that. The other opportunity for investment is into the state government joint ventures. It may be through debt, it's also possible through equity, but debt definitely, in which state and central government will take equal equity, and that can be leveraged 3 to 4 times depending upon the project, and that again can bring in a lot of investment to the railways infrastructure. So the RIDF is another opportunity which can actually create possibilities of people participating depending upon their appetite. Whether the pension funds would like to take long-term exposure, they would like to come in as an equity partner, they would like to take only debt positions, all of that will depend upon the type of opportunity. So we are trying to create platform in which individual need, individual priority of investment can be matched with a type of structure that we create in the railways. It is something we should not go to a person and say that this is the only one, take it or leave it. The railway has a huge operation. Railways business can grow with this partnership, and this partnership can help railways to increase the revenue stream with investment coming from somewhere else. So this is the best thing that can happen. In fact, some of the best logistic companies of the world, they hardly own any infrastructure. They work on the logistic support, the IPR. Their IPR is how they manage the logistic. So money is not made by only creating physical assets. It's basically how do you manage the asset, how do you leverage the asset, how do you make sure that the asset is going to give you revenue. That is something which is important. And therefore, this is the new thinking that must come into the railways. And that can also happen through partnership like the stakeholders beyond railways. And therefore, I am very happy that we are doing it today. So there are multiple opportunities, whether in domestic investment, foreign investment, coming as a debt providers or equity partners, somebody who would like to take a long-term position, who can just provide short-term possibilities, all of that could be one of the ways of doing it. And I must tell my friends in railways particularly, because sometimes you feel debt. Firstly, the debt is by the government of India. If the railways are very keen, they would have created the assets without any debt. So I think some of our friends who talk about it must understand it very clearly, that without debt, we had option of creating railway support, but you couldn't do that. And therefore, each one of you are saying that we need investment. Without that, we cannot maintain the operations. So if you want investment, you want the investment, without that railway cannot work, then we have to find the money. So that we have to work on it. Therefore, I am very happy that we'll work as partners and try to make sure that railways operations will become, over a period of time, with this investment, new revenue stream coming in, far, far better than what they are today. And that would increase the opportunities for new revenue stream, opportunities for efficient operation of the present operations, as well as bringing in new ability. And incidentally, for your information, the finance secretary, when we are merging the budget, there was a press conference with the media, and our finance minister also there, I was also there on the dais, and one person asked, what about the debt? So they said all the debt of the railways is part of that entire public debt of the country, because all the operations go from the sovereign debt, and this is something which is the government of India. So we are part of the government, so this is an advantage. While we are part of the government, we are also independent. There is autonomy for operations while we are still regulated by way of accountable to be the parliament. So I think these are the opportunities we should try to look at. I appeal to all my friends, and I particularly thank the World Bank for always being a partner. India has been sitting on the board of World Bank ever since the World Bank was formed, and therefore World Bank is as much as our partner for India's development as we are going to be now. The railway is going to be partner of World Bank in future. So I think we can work with World Bank, IFC, several pension funds, Asian Development Bank, and many others who will be willing to work with us. And also there are a lot of sovereign wealth funds, pension funds. Recently we met one of the world's largest sovereign wealth fund and the pension funds. And they are all very keen to work. That the only challenge is how do you structure it. That's what I think this type of feedback will help us to take us forward. So thank you very much. Congratulations to all the organizers, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.